So thanks for joining us today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to deliver an on-demand, high-quality customer experience and the value of GigCX in the contact center. I'm joined today by Jon Brown. Jon, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Fred. Jon Brown, Senior Vice President of Client Results. Been with Liveops for 10 years and in the BPO industry for 25 years. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And for those who don't know, my name's Fred Stacey. I'm the CEO of Cloud Tech Gurus. Been in contact centers for over 30 years. One of those people that started as an agent, grew into leadership, ran centers, and spent the rest of my career, over 25 years in software, serving the industry. So with that being said, let's jump in.
Awesome.
All right. So Jon, what makes a GigCX agent different from traditional contact center staff?
Yeah, great question, Fred. I think it all kind of starts with the talent profile. So as you think about the traditional BPO, you're typically bound by a 20 or 30 or 40-mile radius around a brick and mortar center of where their locations out. With GigCX, you're able to tap into talent wherever it's located across the United States, global from a footprint standpoint. And so as you think about the talent profile that you bring on and how that talent profile translates to the consumers and the clients that we serve, it's a little bit different or a lot of it different from a traditional BPO standpoint. We're not looking for, like I said, an agent in a certain amount of radius. We're looking for the right talent profile that meets our clients' demands.
Absolutely. So, how does having a gig agent help clients scale quickly without sacrificing experience, though?
Yeah, great question, Fred. I think it all kind of starts from a scheduling standpoint. I think us as humans, over the years have become, quite impatient in terms of being able to connect with brands when we want to connect with brands. And so, to dive a little bit deeper into that, in a traditional, BPO model, which I spent the first 10 years of my life in a traditional BPO model. You schedule in 8-hour blocks, 40-hour shifts or 40 hours, a week, and you typically have to schedule around the high watermark of volume to make sure that you're maintaining SLAs from that standpoint. With
Right.
GigCX, a little bit different. You're scheduling in our scenario, we're scheduling in 30-minute increments. It doesn't mean an agent's only working 30 minutes for that day. They may end up working 4, 5, 6 hours for that day, but it's based off the demand of when that caller is calling in or chatting in or reaching out on social and matching that exact demand there. So you're not having excess waste that's on top of it. You're meeting, consumers where they want to be met, when they want to be met, rather than trying to schedule for an overarching, schedule accuracy model, if you think about it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes total sense. And you guys also, with the Gig CX model, you have a significant advantage for scale up and scale down, right? It's at speed because of that, right?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's not only I kind of put it into two different buckets. One is the predictable staffing or predictable scheduling. There's dynamics that happen from an interval standpoint. To give you an example of if 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. requires 50 agents to be on board, and 10 a.m. requires 22 agents to be able to handle that volume, and 11 a.m. requires 72 agents. You're matching that exact demand as required, and that's the predictable volume that you think. And then there's the unpredictable volumes higher than what demand is, or volumes lower than what demand is. Traditionally, you would have to go hire, train, recruit agents, get them on board, get them knowledgeable about the program. And that, Fred, that can take, depending on the program, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks to do. With
Yeah.
Gig, you're specifically designed to be able to react to intraday staffing or intraday volume that is unforecasted. And
Right.
I think back to some of our clients that we work with today, especially in the retail space, it's not uncommon for us to give a good example of this last retail season, it was, 9 a.m. volume was, 400 to 500%, over forecasted volume. And
Yeah.
typically you're like, okay, there's not a lot I can do in that outside of, hope and pray for the best. In the Gig CX model, we're able to get agents on real time. And this is a real life example that we had was within 30 minutes, it was actually 30 to 45 minutes, we had 3x of the agent requirement on board to make sure that not only SLAs were handled, but most importantly, the consumer was taken care of in the timeline and the fashion that they wanted to be taken care of. And that translates into longer lifetime value for our client and that consumer a happier consumer because they didn't spend 10, 15, 20 minutes sitting on hold.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent. Well, let's jump on to the next subject. And this is obviously what everybody is talking about nowadays in contact center and customer experience. So, with AI handling tier one interactions, why do gig agents remain critical?
Yeah, that's a great question, Fred. And as you know, especially with your, mentioned your background and being in the software business and, specifically in the AI business for the last, 2 decades or 2.5 decades, AI has definitely disrupted this business quite a bit in the last several years. So when you think about how AI and CX kind of work together. It's obviously AI is taking some of the easier interactions from that standpoint and being able to to service that component of it. The other component that it's I think AI is bringing value around is the agent assist aspect of it, or how you help support agents through that journey. And so as you think about GigCX and kind of back to the first kind of question or comment that we talked about a little bit is being able to find the right talent across regions or things from that standpoint and not being bound by certain brick and mortar radius, if you will. AI allows us to go find the right talent both from a recruiting standpoint in GigCX, to be able to match that up with brands, as well as being able to provide them the right agent assist capabilities that ultimately, at the end of the day, help bring value to not only our clients, but help bring value to our consumer or to the consumers as well. As we mentioned before, consumers are, we're highly impatient as humans these days, and so
We are.
the interaction point in terms of when they actually have to speak to a human to solve a problem, normally that's more of a complex problem. So if AI can help solve some of the easy things, allow people to go beyond or continue on with their day, and then be able to have agent assist running in the background to be able to help support that agent that's supporting the brand and helping the whether it's a consumer or whether it's a patient. I think AI plays in a lot of different spaces from a gig CX standpoint, specifically around attracting talent, finding the right talent, and then supporting that talent as they continue to support different brands in the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't box AI into a single point of just handling the customer interaction. It sounds like you guys are absolutely ahead of the curve and supporting your agents on the front end, during the cycle and while they're actually active. That's perfect. So, can you share a few examples though of improved CX with AI and Gig CX working together?
Yeah, I think there's great question. I think there's a lot of examples of that. I'll kind of go back to one of the first examples I gave just a second ago. If you don't have to talk to a human and you can solve it through AI, ultimately that translates to a better customer experience, which ultimately translates better to longer lifetime value for that brand. And so some of the work that we've done with some of our clients recently is looking at different friction points of where consumers, feel friction when they're interacting with a brand. And does it actually need to require a human to do that work, or are there things that you can set up from a process standpoint to allow AI to handle that? So a consumer or a patient is not waiting for a human to be able to solve that. Secondarily, I think, and you obviously, I'd love to hear your opinion on this as well, but AI continues to learn and continues to learn around where are the friction points with brands and how do you help relay that information and give that information back to brands so that they can improve their overall experience. And then kind of the third point around it is stuff that we talked on a second ago is being able to use Agent Assist to solve a problem for a consumer that is outside of outside of the norm, back to the complexity, which is typically when it gets to a human. AI is the ability to recognize when there's a problem with a consumer before, or an experience before it becomes widespread, to allow that technology to do what it's supposed to do and be able to ultimately create a positive experience for that consumer, as it continues to learn and continues to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where over the last year, especially with the recursive learning and some of the tool sets, a lot of the things we do is still human in the loop, though. An expert like your organization, really with the insights and data that artificial intelligence provides, the analytics and all the what we call intents, and really help design the right way to interact with that customer, right? But you're spot on. This stuff is just going to continue to get better, and the speed at which everything's changing, no one's ever seen. So let's jump into the next one. Yeah, this is something that I think with GigCX, a lot of people don't really understand how you accomplish this when it comes down to scheduling. So how does precision scheduling work with gig agents?
Yeah, I think this is truly one of the biggest value props as you think about about GigCX. We touched a little bit earlier on the talent profile, making sure you're bringing in the right talent. The second part of that is making sure that you're scheduled correctly for that talent as they're interacting with different consumers or patients. And so our approach around it is we typically schedule on 30-minute blocks. And so
Right.
kind of the example I used before, if a requirement from a staffing standpoint from 9 to 9:30 is 55 people, that's exactly what we're going to schedule for. If from 9:30 to 10 is 65 people or 75 people, that's exactly what we're going to schedule for. And so what that does is that it allows the agent that's help supporting to do what they love to do, which is interacting with consumers, interacting with patients, and not sitting and waiting for a call because you had to staff to, the high watermark from that perspective. The other thing that it does is it really drives efficiency and cost savings in your business. And so as you think about the exact precision of that 30-minute scheduling, you're not paying for over. Two things typically happen. You either pay for overage from a cost standpoint, or you're under and you pay from it from a consumer experience standpoint. The precision allows you to only pay for when you actually need that agent to be able to support the brand. It gives a better agent experience. It also gives a better customer experience because you're very much dialed into the exact staffing requirements and staffing needs that are needed to support it.
Well, I know you kind of touched on some of these benefits, but yeah, what really are, can you dive into a little bit more of the benefits of the 30-minute interval scheduling in GigCX?
Yeah, I think from a traditional model standpoint, you're typically targeting, depending on the program, you're targeting, a 75, 80 for 85%, occupancy or utilization, depending on kind of how your company looks at it. And if you go
Right.
on to the next slide, I think some of the data that may be able to show in there, this kind of gives you a breakdown around the cost savings that are associated with an FTE model versus a gig model, and kind of what we were just talking about a second ago. You're not
Right.
staffing to the high watermark. You're staffing to exactly what the requirements are. And it may seem small in 30-minute increments, two or three or four extra people may seem small, but you apply that to 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And all of a sudden, if you look at this example based off 28,000 calls or 28,000 interactions, you're paying 2.5 million extra dollars just to make sure that you're staffed to support the consumer, rather than being staffed exactly appropriate based off the requirements around there. So there's the SLA concerns, right? You're not missing SLAs. You're creating a better customer experience, but then you're also saving for some of that efficiency gains that you have by not having average or extra costs associated. And I think Fred, you'd agree with me. We all can use an extra, couple $1 million to put back in the business to help support innovation or growth or things that we want to accomplish in our business lives.
No, absolutely. Well, and the 26.3% variance, I mean, scale that across anybody's numbers, and I mean, obviously, that's a huge difference. I don't think people really realize, and I like these numbers because it's obvious. 30 minutes doesn't sound like much. Clearly, it is. All right. So, let's go on to the next slide. How is gig talent leveraged globally? Obviously here in the States, how is it leveraged across the entire world though?
Yeah, it's an interesting and it's a GigCX from a global standpoint is something that's more recently taken off in the last couple of years or so. We've been doing obviously gigs since our inception in 2000, which to your point has been mainly domestic. Over the last couple of years, we've expanded that reach, and there's the obvious things around language, being able to tap into different language profiles or different language markets to support those language needs. There's also brands that are growing. They may start in US and they may expand into different markets. And so as you think about expansion opportunities that take places for business, you don't want to have to go create another brick and mortar W-2 as you expand into other markets. You want to be able to replicate that same staffing model that drove higher customer experience, that drove higher or longer lifetime value around that customer. And then, the other thing I think about is just the unique talent profile of different locations, whether it's the Philippines, whether it's India, whether it's Mexico, whether it's the US. There's different talent strengths that each of us as humans bring to the table, and to be able to tap into each of those talents and be able to make them a representation of your brand, I think is highly powerful, even outside of just the language aspect of it.
Absolutely. I've been in centers all over the world, and it always amazed me, how passionate a lot of cultures and countries I found their agents are, and how they really value and quite. So, how is quality maintained though across geographies?
Yeah, I think it's not to belabor the point, but it really kind of talks about our opening comment. It's that talent profile. It's you're finding the right talent. And then I think beyond that, and Fred, you're obviously much more of an expert in this area than I am, but it's using technology to make sure that you have a consistent approach and a consistent message wherever you're at globally. And so as you think about what does quality mean to you and how do you manage quality, obviously that as we work with with our clients and different brands, it's helping identify what's most important to them, what makes a successful call, then creating a technology stack that helps support that, helps identify that, and then helps train to make sure that that output is correct. And then the third part of that I would be, and you kind of touched on it from a Philippine standpoint. I remember, it was, oh shoot, it's been 15 years ago that I first started going to the Philippines. Quality is very, very important to them. They want to
Yeah.
make sure they are doing a phenomenal job for, the clients that they represent. And the ability to give agents real-time feedback, the ability to incorporate feedback from the consumer based off their interaction type and do it in a way that is real time versus, Fred, you've been in this business as long as I have. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it would take you a week and a half or 2 weeks to get that data. By that point, the agent doesn't even remember that call or remember that interaction around it. The real time feedback and the real time interaction point from a quality standpoint, layered on top of the talent profile, the flexibility, I really think truly brings that value proposition to life. But I'd love to hear, Fred, you have obviously spent a lot of time in this space from a technology standpoint and live and breathe it. Are you seeing a lot of those shifts from a quality standpoint as people use different technology?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, just first of all, the ability to analyze 100% of call recordings, if you choose, right? Not all customers, meaning the client, serving their clients. Not all the customers want the same, level of deep visibility. But to me, the technology has advanced so far that it almost becomes silly not to.
Right.
The real time, just the value from understanding all of the intents of every conversation, right? Voice, chat, WhatsApp, all the various tools, and really getting insight into what's happening on the product level, the service level, what's happening with the agent, the customer. When applied across an organization, these tools, and we're just talking about one little bit,
Hmm.
which is, the conversational analytics piece, and that in itself has made significant differences in organizations. There's a million case studies out there where conversational analytics has saved clients, saved legal issues. There's so much value to this technology, and it just continues to get better. We used to be, around 80% accurate, which wasn't really good enough to do it at scale. Now you're seeing 95+% accuracy rates. And especially as we migrate to cloud and bidirectional audio, it's yeah, I mean, the technology has moved so far so fast. It's definitely made a huge impact. And all the other technologies wrapped around bringing this, making this world a lot smaller now, right? You can manage at-home agents anywhere in the world, just as if they were sitting right in your center. And the security and compliance behind it, and yeah, I mean, technology is definitely given us all the tools we need to advance to have agents anywhere where best appropriate to handle for whatever clients' needs are.
Yeah, I think you said something that was super critical there. It's the insights component that you get from, from the technology. I think back to, I mean, there's still, still folks that operate this today. You were making business decisions based off of, you know, doing quality on 3 calls per agent per week, and then, trying to adjust your, your
Yep.
business process to solve for that. And most of the time you missed out on so many different things because you were only getting a 0.5% of the actual interactions that were taking place. Now technology is allowed not only to, the accuracy of it, but you can record 100% of the calls, and you can get insights within that, within, a snap of a finger, to really give you direction of where your business is headed and be able to solve problems kind of that we talked about before they become major critical, fundamental problems that are, that are impacting your business. So yeah, I love the insight comments, because I think that, that value of that data and being able to get it real time is tremendous.
Yeah, back when I was running centers, I wish I had, yes, half the information. Because we always called it leadership by wandering, meaning you wander the
Yep.
floor, you listen to the sound of the floor. Yeah, you get your Y cord. This is going to date me a little
Yeah.
bit. You
Yep.
you plug into the Y cord. You listen to the calls. You live coach. These tools now can do all that stuff. I mean, like you said earlier, you can literally do it live, and can help the agents, in case they miss questions, they fail to read a compliance statement, name the number of ways you can use it. But it's an amazing world we live in. So what are the benefits though versus just an onshore only model? When you're doing international as well.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different benefits from it. There's, depending on where, where your consumer base is or your patient base is, there's, time zones from, from that standpoint, and being able to, service different time zone. I think, from a BCP standpoint, redundancy, having, backups from, that, not having all of your eggs in one basket, from only being domestic or only being nearshore or only being offshore, and having, redundancy around it. And then ultimately, and this is, we do a lot of this work today, from a Liveops standpoint, is we don't, obviously we work very closely with our clients in identifying this, but we don't care where the talent's located. We care about how they solve the problem for the consumer on the end of the phone, or the patient on the end of the phone, or text or social, or whatever it may be. And so you're really able to take advantage of different cultures and blend them together, for the betterment and support of of that customer. And I think you didn't go into it thinking BCP was the main main reason that you've got multi different geographical footprint, but that's a a value add around it. It's all centered around what's the best experience for the consumer or the patient that you're serving, and then how do you match that talent internationally wise to support it. And then it kind of goes back to what we were talking a second ago around is, as brands or companies look to expand into other markets, if they want to go to APAC, if they want to go to EMA, the ability to, have those capabilities to expand is something that is, very valuable to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes total sense. And in the end, the balance of cost too. I mean, you can't really talk about outsourcing anything without talking about cost. And I mean, everybody has measurements. Every enterprise I've ever talked to in an outsourcing project, they have requirements of what they can spend. They have budgetary, budget set, and um, yeah, I mean, it's just a major part of the decision making. So, having the ability to best determine, where you want to go with those agents is absolutely essential.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I think, even, 5, 10 years ago, it was, there were kind of decisions that were made based off, if you went domestic, nearshore, or offshore, it was, economics, and did that push us near or offshore?
Right.
Quality, did that push us back domestic? And now those really aren't the problem statements that you're looking for. I mean, obviously the economics still continues to play a big role in it, but you're looking at what gives me the best chance to serve my consumer and patient the best. Because to your, to the conversation we had a second ago, technology has advanced so much in the recent years that it's allowed you to tap into different markets from a nearshore and offshore standpoint, balance economic cost, and deliver a total solution to a client. But I think it's a great point. Economics still play a major role in it.
Of course.
But it's not the only decision maker as you look for expansion opportunities and kind of where you service your clients from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, any final things? Anything you feel like we missed? Do you definitely you want to talk about?
Oh man, I could talk about GigCX for for hours and days at a time. And there's obviously a lot of different unique value props that are out there that obviously I'm passionate about based on the work that I did. I think we hit on a lot of the the major ones. I would love to, version 2 of this, Fred, if you invite me back, is maybe a little bit deeper dive into to some of these conversation points on some of the the underlying value props that that come from GigCX. But no additional comments from my standpoint. I obviously appreciate you inviting me on, and welcome the the conversation. It's always enjoyable to to speak the same language with somebody that's grown up in this space and seen it evolve, and some of the the possibilities. I even think like we mentioned a couple years ago or 10 years ago, this type of delivery mechanism with GigCX plus technology, kind of was somewhat of a pipe dream. And it's not anymore. It's here, it's real. And there's a lot of Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 brands that are using this exact delivery model to ultimately bring value to to their consumer base.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And not enough. Even though they're actually adopting finally, I think this to me has always been the future. I still remember when I learned about you guys. I think the first conversation I ever had was somebody said something about think of it like Uber, for the contact center. And obviously it's matured significantly since then. And now to your point, as you combine AI with Geek CX, the power of it is it's pretty hard to even a couple of years ago to even imagine that we would actually be doing this. I love the conversation, appreciated the time, definitely have you back. And those watching, thank you for taking the time.
Awesome. Thanks, Fred.